On the Healthy Human Revolution podcast, Dr. Lori Marbas interviews nutrition and lifestyle medicine experts and extraordinary guests whose informative and inspiring stories will empower you with the knowledge to transform your life and health.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm Dr. Lori Marbas, and today I'm so honored to welcome Gwyn Whittaker. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, Lori. I'm very excited to talk with you.
Well, I tell you, I'm very excited for people to learn what you're doing in Virginia and the amazing things that you offer your local community and abroad. And so can we get started with, let's just learn a little bit about you and your plant-based journey, and what was your inspiration for the GreenFare Cafe?
So my background is definitely not in this space. I was educated as an electrical engineer, and I was actually involved in technology in the intelligence community for about 35 years. I ran a company in the intelligence community that put the first cloud computer at CIA. So that was our claim to fame. And let's see, 11 years ago, I lost a partner to heart disease. He was 50 years old and did not get a stent or a bypass. He basically died at his first event. And so it was pretty much of a shock to my system. I kept my company going, and a couple of years later, after I sold the company, a friend introduced me to the Forks Over Knives film, and it was like a veil got lifted off of my eyes. I always thought I was on a healthy diet, and it really brought home that there's another path. I had been a gradual vegetarian, so I'd stopped eating cows in my teens and poultry in my 20s. And so I thought you still needed fish for protein and dairy for calcium. So I'd sort of bought into the standard fare, I guess, that you get served from the nutritional community. So the film opened my eyes. I went on the holistic holiday at Sea Cruise. I don't know if you've heard of that, but I heard T. Colin Campbell and Neil Barnard, Dr. Esselstyn, Dr. Clapper, who I know you work with now, which is exciting, and Dr. Michael Greger. So it was like a whole lineup of the rock stars. And instead of going to maybe one or two lectures, I just immersed, and I came out entirely plant-based, and it started me on that whole journey.
Absolutely. That's a really fun cruise. We've gone once. I'm not a huge fan of cruises. I did tend to get a little seasick even on the larger ships, but it is remarkable to be stuck on one vessel with these incredible people that we all respect and admire for being trailblazers in this field. And so at this point, where do you get the idea to open a cafe? Because that is quite an undertaking, especially if that's not your background.
Yeah, so let's see. So at this point, I'd sold my company, and I sort of had the opportunity to pursue things that I really cared about. I've always been an animal lover. I care about the environment, and the whole health thing really appealed to me after I watched this film. And so I ended up reaching out to Colin Campbell, and he said, I'll meet you for 30 minutes. And I flew up to, I remember, Pennsylvania to meet him at, I think it was the Summerfest. And instead of half an hour, we talked for a couple of hours. And I basically said, how can I help? And at that point, his son, Nelson Campbell, was doing the Plant Pure Nation film. And so I offered to help complete the funding for that film to get produced. And at the same time, I asked Colin and Nelson, so in that film, they do these 10-day jumpstart programs. It's 10 days. So I offered to host one of those in Virginia, and I rounded up 45 people. I had 2 doctors, 2 CEOs of companies, a lot of innovative, intelligent people that paid $250 to cover the cost of the food. And we did the blood testing, blood pressure, weight at the beginning and end of the program, gave them food. Colin came down and did a talk, and it was life-changing for people. So in just 10 days, people's cholesterol dropped an average of 20%, some people over 30%, which is significantly better than any statin you'll ever take. with no side effects. And blood pressure normalized. And one of my friends had rheumatoid arthritis, severe. She was on one drug for that and like 3 significant pain medications. And in 10 days, she was off of 3 of the drugs. And a couple months later, she was off of the 4th. And so I started getting letters from people saying that this 10-day thing changed my life. And, after 2 or 3 letters and a bottle of wine, it was like, there's a need for something here to help people with this path. So it's not enough, I think, to get an idea or even get the education, that you have to provide a plan and the food to make it accessible to people. So I had the idea to open a restaurant that was educational in nature. And I had met Pericles Silva, who was at Whole Foods in Reston, and he was running the Health Starts Here program. He was a sports nutritionist. I said, I've got this crazy idea of opening a restaurant. You want to join me? And we started looking at spaces and found GreenFare. And we did in software development, there's something called the agile approach to software development, where you're doing quick spins. So normally in the restaurant business, it takes a year, from concept to doors open. And we did it in 2 months.
Oh my goodness.
Signed a lease in September and opened in November. And then we started doing the 21-day kickstart from PCRM in December that year. So we've had over 1,000 people, maybe 3 dozen doctors go through it, and a lot of dedicated customers. So it's been great.
Wow. So what are some of the stories that really are notable to you that you've seen people come through?
Yeah. So gosh, there's so many. It's the thing that consistently amazes me is that, and I think Dean Ornish says this, that inflammation is the root cause. And when you reverse the inflammation, almost all chronic illnesses go away. So we've seen it's just sickness emanates in different ways in different people. And so I've watched Crohn's disease reverse in 21 days, the rheumatoid arthritis. I've watched multiple people that were designated for either dialysis or kidney replacements come off of a list and watch their kidney function return. So the surgery avoidance is a huge thing. Instead of getting an organ replaced, you just eat beans and rice. So, and then in December, we did a diabetes project. So we had 25 African Americans with type 2 diabetes, went through a 28-day program. So we did 5 classes, and we gave 3 meals a day for 28 days. We did A1C and lipid profile. And people come in twice a week to pick up food. So every time they came in, we took their blood pressure, their weight, and a photograph. And so you're watching people, like a couple of people, actually, their faces were dramatically different. They lost chins, during the 28 days. One fellow, since December, he's lost over 40 pounds. And this is eating a pound of food per meal, so it's not starvation, it's not portion control. And so the thing that I love about this path is that not only does it give hope for health, but it also, from an environmental footprint standpoint, it sort of culminates in the 3 things that I care the most about, which is health, the environment, and animals. So it takes animals out of the food loop and provides a path to planetary cooling, and at the same time, you're really opting out of the medical industrial environment and taking your health into your own hands. So it's providing the education with that. So
That's fabulous. I mean, that's just so many lives impacted. And then the ripple effect is always really fun too. Have you heard anyone come back to you say, and now I've got my family on board or my friends, anything like that?
Yeah, one of the folks in the diabetes program, the next month, he paid for his parents to go through it. And the Plant-Based News picked up the diabetes video that we had done. And it's a really cool video. I could, I think it's like 10 minutes long, so it's a little bit long, but it's got people interviewed before the program started about, going to the doctor and being diagnosed with diabetes and walking out with medication and thinking that they were going to be on this for the rest of their lives, to people that said they felt like they'd gotten their control back and they were in discussion with their doctor about getting off of medication instead of being put on more medication. And so it's one fellow he's a friend of mine. He served on the Humane Rescue Alliance board with me for years, and he's an ambassador, very intelligent, well-traveled man, and he was facing dialysis, starting in dialysis. And he had a cardiologist, an internist, and a nephrologist. And in the video, he talks about meeting with his doctors, where he came in and got an assessment after the program was over, and they proclaimed him a new man. So, instead of going through dialysis, he's talking about a vacation with his brother in Belize.
Oh, wow. So now I'm curious though, so you had these dramatic turnarounds. What has been your experience with, your clients telling you, what do their doctors do? Do their doctors say, what are you doing, and try to learn more? Or are they just like, oh, that's great. That's supposed to be a miracle. We don't see that. Okay, great. Next patient. What has been your experience?
Yeah, so we definitely tell people to tell their doctors that they're planning to go on this program. And most doctors are, I think, interested to hear how their patients are going to do. And it was before the pandemic, but 1 month in our Kickstart program, we had 4 doctors that had signed up for the program after they had usually it's 2 or more patients come through and they've lost weight or gotten off medication. And so the doctors want to, what's the magic secret of this? One doctor, the month after the program, she sent four people in her office to go through it. So
Wow.
I think you're Food for Life instructor as well. So PCRM, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, has the Food for Life videos that we leverage in the class. And then we bring what we consider to be sort of the best and most current science on things like longevity. So we integrate intermittent fasting. So basically no snacking during the day, 3 meals a day. We talk about the benefits of an organic plant-based diet that's free of salt, oil, and sugar, so the SOS component. And the organic and SOS plus plant-based, I believe with intermittent fasting is really sort of optimal health. And we're always, talking about breaking food addictions, label reading. I have an app that my company developed that's called GreenFare. So it's a shopping app. You can scan a label and it'll give you basically green thumbs up or red thumbs down based on animal products and salt, sugar, fat.
Oh, wow.
So that's
that's like anywhere in the country they can use that?
Yeah, you can download.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's an access code. It's Eat Plants, all lowercase, so it's easy to remember. And you can scan a label. It hits a database that all products have to be entered into. And we use basically Jeff Novak's rules. I think Clapper is very familiar with him, from True North.
Okay.
We basically are looking for the calories equal sodium, the calories in sodium milligrams are equivalent or less, the percent calories from fat are 10% or less, and no animal products. Sugar is not in the top 3 ingredients.
And they just look under GreenFare.
It's called Skinny Shop, but if you find GreenFare on there, it's a way to make
this guy right here.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I'm going to be sending my patients off to this. This is great.
Yeah. We're getting ready to launch 2.0 of this, so that'll be up and coming, and that'll allow you to do more personalization, to save products in your personalized database and do a review of products. One of the challenges I think is that as the food companies, a new company will come out with a healthy product and it will be bought by Kellogg's and they reformulate it. So like Kashi's cereal, now is owned by Kellogg's. And so you start to see the cheaper ingredients come in, and it usually dilutes the health benefits that the company put in place when they started. So continuing to read labels is a really key part of what we do. And then lastly, we do a class on meal planning and quick and easy meals, how to do shortcuts to prepare meals in short amounts of time. I'm a big fan of the Forks Over Knives app. So that's my personal secret.
Yeah, no, I love I love the Forks Over Knives app. So what are some of your favorite recipes and foods? So if I'm in Virginia, I'm stopping by Herndon for sure. But can you tell me a little bit about like what is it like to experience your restaurant?
Yeah, so I can tell you that owning a restaurant has been a real eye-opening experience. When I had my technology company, I probably ate out maybe sometimes 3 times a day, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I have a single household with two dogs. I cook for my dogs. But the awesome thing about having a restaurant, is being able to take the meal plan home. So we do have a meal plan. So people that live in Northern Virginia, and we have people that come down from Columbia, Maryland, and up from Richmond to, pick up meals on the weekend.
Wow.
So we have something like 80 recipes. So if you buy meals for a month, you'll get 2 meals a day that are all different. So there's a lot of variety. And if you're a single person, making one meal, then you're going to end up eating usually the same thing for 4 to 6 times. So that's great. But the eye-opening thing, I think, to me especially was what happens at the back of restaurants these days, and they don't get boxes of produce in. They're not making food in the restaurants. They're getting trucks that show up with pre-made frozen food that go into their freezer, and they awaken the food flavor with salt and oil and then serve it out. It's why if you go to usually like a Chinese or Thai restaurant, you have like 6 pages of things, and they're all little packages, and it's all dead food. Nothing is, so the nutritional value is going to be low, and the fat and sodium contents are going to be high. And so, if you eat out a lot, then there's a huge impact to your health. And I think the thing that, so I went out to the CIA in Sonoma Valley. This is the fall before the pandemic hit, and it was the Culinary Institute of America in Sonoma. And they were doing a conference in Global Plant Forward for restaurants. And it was really cool. There were like 400 restaurants there, and these are all Google was there with their head of all their chefs for all their facilities, and Joe Yonan from the Washington Post. So some people I knew but they were basically talking about the demand for plant-based is so strong in the world right now that if you're a restaurant and you're not doing this, that you're going to fall behind. And so for me, that was incredibly exciting to see that. And probably at the same time, we go to something called the Natural Products Expo, and 85% of all the new products that they have coming out are USDA organic certified.
Wow.
So you can see like these two combinations of whole food, plant-based, and organic they're 2 separate bubbles that are starting to intersect, and people that are on the path to health will eventually find both of those things.
Wow, how exciting. It is a really wonderful time, because I know you went to a plant-based diet like 2010, 2011 timeframe,
Yes.
or more vegan type
Yeah.
diet. I was in 2012, early 2012, trying to figure out how to do this with patients, and it was amazing. But now you see this tidal wave occurring, and isn't it remarkable and fun? And
I mean, I went out to McDougall's wellness program, and I remember the one thing in my mind that kept sticking is, why is this taking so long to get out? It's like Colin Campbell did the China work in the 80s, and Esselstyn with the reverse heart disease, and it's been 40 years for this to
Mhm.
come out. But I think, we were talking about the, Tesla and automotive industry and how, my 7-year-old car has really created a tipping point for automotive. I think most companies now are saying that combustion engines are going to be gone in usually, 2 to 10 years.
Wow.
And so I sort of see the same thing with animal consumption and an upset in the medical practice, I think, is destined to change as well, because sick care is just so expensive compared to wellness, focus
Mhm.
on wellness.
Mhm.
And so I think it's a sustainable path. And if you can provide that sort of outside of the mandates,
Mhm.
some of the industrialized medicine, then I think there's huge opportunity to, really create a new path.
Yeah, you're exactly right, because it's not only expensive financially, but it's expensive in the human cost. And, it's been a real eye opener as pushing a lifestyle medicine, plant-based, and obviously focus practice. It's been such a joy to see patients get 100% well many times, but definitely everybody improves. I always tell people, like, there is no downside here, because everybody gets some better and many get very good. Like, they get 100% reversal. And so that's been really fun. It's such a joy to see doctors to enjoy their work and actually true healing versus just here's another pill, go on, I'll see you next week or whatever. It's amazing. So, I mean, what an incredible opportunity to work with so many folks. And the diabetes video is how I first heard of you. And I was reaching out to people that shares, like, hey, can you connect me with Gwyn? And really just wanted to see what you're doing, because it's so much fun to share what people are doing. What was your initial idea to start with the diabetes program? Because I think that was so powerful, just listening to the video.
Yeah, so I think for me, the videos are always a lot more powerful than the numbers. And so you can go on a path where you're doing nutritional research. And I remember, I think Dr. Greger said, it took 5,000 papers before smoking and causation with lung cancer were widely accepted. And I'm like, we don't have that time to do that. But if you can show compelling stories, those are the things that are going to resonate with people. And I think that, the diabetes video has been shown almost 40,000 times now. And,
Wow.
it opened a door for us at AARP, and we're hopefully going to launch a partnership with them for employees and members. I'm, going to cross my fingers on that. But I see that the taste for change right now is really strong in organizations. And I think the pandemic has sort of accelerated that. Um, there's a couple, I'm not sure if you saw that it was like there's two paths. You can either medicate and vaccinate, or you can change the terrain, right? And one is, I think the whole focus that I like is how do you boost your immune system through, your nutrition, your exercise, your managing your stress, and meditation. And so I think helping people with a path on those things is really the where you see the future, because the once you get on these other paths, I think it's with medication, it's just always another medication and always treating more side effects, and it's just like two different paths that people choose. And I think the next generation is ready for quick change. So I think what I started noticing was maybe when I still had my business, I would go out to lunch with my peers, and I would tell them I'm plant-based, and so they would almost always say, "Well, I'll order what you're going to order," sort of against respect, or maybe because they didn't want me frowning at their plate, which I would have done. But so, people were willing to try it. And always the story came where, oh, well, my daughter or my grandson is plant-based or vegetarian,
Oh.
vegan or vegetarian. And so you always hear these stories that, my generation, I'm, a baby boomer, and I think the next generation is just a lot more inclined to do what they need to do to improve the planetary health. They're not thinking about their own health at that age. And probably compassion for animals is the same thing. I think we kind of grew up where everything is hidden from people. And so, some of the compassion over killing and the mercy for animals, I think some of those groups that show sort of the horrific videos, it's like you can see those maybe one time and it makes you want to opt out of these industries. And so, for me, I usually don't need the visuals. I can read them. I remember reading, it was 10 years ago, it was called The Ethics of Food Choices, and I was still eating seafood, and I remember opening the book and looking to seafood, and it described maybe 4 or 5 pages about how both factory farming of fish and wild caught fish is not anything like you imagine. The 6-foot diameter nets that are scooping everything up, and 90% of what's caught is thrown away, is bykill. And so it was like I was sort of horrified. I remember closing the book. It's like I'm done. I'm out of this industry. It's like I'm not supporting this anymore. And some of the restaurants that I think one place I used to go pretty routinely was a seafood restaurant that sort of advertised the fish that they got from around the world. And you're thinking about the environmental footprint, it's like the exact opposite of local and sustainable, right? And so it's, I think those types of places are just destined to, to go away in the next couple of years, because I think people are they're not going to have a market for it.
Right. I just watched the documentary Seaspiracy.
Yes.
And that was mind blowing. And it was, especially with the plastic and the pollution, there's a whole nother element. I had no idea that over half of, the plastic pollution that we're focused on was actually from the fishing industry itself. We're so focused on the straws, which obviously still need to be, but it's 0.03% of the plastic, that ends up in our oceans. I'm like, oh my goodness. So, and how do we stop this? You stop the demand, and that it starts with, what are you choosing with your dollar when you go to the store or to the restaurants? And it's just so true. But my kids are that generation you're talking about. They're 27, one will be 25, one's 22, and my daughter is finishing medical school next month. She's graduating and going off to Boston to be a plant-based doctor in family medicine. I'm super excited for her. But it was really interesting when you talk to these kids. They they were teenagers when I brought this home overnight, but they didn't make it for their health, obviously. But when you talk to them, they're talking about, what kind of world am I going to inherit, as I venture into adulthood, and what are my children going to be facing if we don't own this? And my daughter put it very succinctly. She goes, I can't make any other choice. I couldn't continue to eat foods that I know don't align with my morality. It's really true.
Yeah. And I think that, the internet and has definitely accelerated the awareness that people have of things that were hidden for so long. And the restaurant industry, I was one of the beta customers for company, it's Purple Carrot, but it's just the food delivery services companies. And I just remember sort of being horrified at the amount of packaging that came with that, the convenience of getting a single meal, but all of this packaging that you're just basically, what are you doing with it? And so, we've got a lot of pressure. I think the most often asked question that we get is, when are you going to open other locations? And people want food delivered. I just maybe a month ago, I stopped all our food delivery services.
Oh wow!
And it was prompted by a comedian, Jim Gaffigan. I don't know if you've heard him. He's kind of a chubby, pretty family-oriented comedian. He does this segment on delivery services, and he said, I love your restaurant, just not enough to leave my house. And so I started thinking, it's like, that it's even delivery is like one to one. You've got one car that's driving to a restaurant and back to one customer, and the environmental footprint of that meal is like you start multiplying that. And so none of the driving services really treat their drivers that well. You miss the opportunity to have conversations with people about why you're doing SOS free food, which if people get a coupon and they order something that they think they're going to be healthy and they don't like it, they were our most problematic customers because they didn't usually know what they're getting. So when people come in and they see the books and it piques curiosity and we have conversations, and so it's that creating more of a community instead of just handing a bag into somebody's dark house. So that's that's been kind of a decision point. And we've done all compostable materials for our meal plan. So our containers are made out of sugar cane.
Oh,
And
wow.
I actually saved the ones that I use. I'm getting ready to start doing some spring planting. So I'll use the containers. The lids are great saucers, and I can put seeds in those and then put them actually just right into the ground, and they kind of dissolve into the
Oh, wow.
pits. So that's pretty cool.
So that is fantastic. I mean, you're literally you took an opportunity to offer your local services, but feed patients well, but you're also looking at your environmental footprint, and then even your packaging for the meal plan is environmentally friendly and helping people grow more healthy food right from the door. So that's fantastic. Well, I'll tell you, I know we're short on time here and you need to go, but I would like to ask, is there anything advice that you'd give to anyone, maybe two audiences, one who are looking to do something like this themselves, who want to, spread the news and share the love of eating a whole food plant-based diet, or maybe someone who's thinking of starting on this journey? Any advice or thoughts there?
Well, if you're in the Northern Virginia area, we're in Herndon, Virginia, and so definitely stop by GreenFare. We have people usually that fly into Dulles Airport, and we're probably 15 minutes from the airport. If you haven't seen the Game Changers film, I'm one of the executive producers of that, and that's probably one of the most inspirational films I think that's come out lately about athletes and optimal performance. So I would watch the Game Changers. It's on Netflix and Amazon. And then I would probably download the Forks Over Knives app. And if you cook everything from that app for a couple of weeks, I can guarantee that your health is going to improve. GreenFare, it's greenfare.com. We have, I've got a nonprofit now, the GreenFare Health and Wellness, that did the diabetes program. And so I've got plans for more projects. But, those are a couple of, we have some resources out there on the greenfare.com too, as far as, I think you mentioned Seaspiracy, but Cowspiracy, What the Hell, Forks Over Knives. There's some great videos to get educated on, and then the 21-day Kickstart book is what we use for the classes.
That's fantastic. I will tell you, I interviewed Luisa Hoyas. I have never laughed so much in an interview in my entire life.
Okay.
It was fantastic. I tell you, he's got some amazing stories. So that was so good. I love that. Game Changers, I watched with he was then, I think he was 18 then. I think it was about 4 years ago, or maybe it was 19. It was so funny. The urologist, and when they were talking about it, it was like, "Hey, Gabe, look at there." He's like, "Oh my goodness, my mom is so embarrassed." So if you want to embarrass your teenage son, it's a good movie to do it with. So
it definitely resonates with men, and they tend to be the knuckle draggers, I think, in making the dietary changes. So
knuckle draggers. Oh my gosh, that's great. Oh, well, thank you, Gwyn, so much for spending time with us and our audience, and everyone. Again, we'll put all the links in the show notes, but it's it's so fun to see people as yourself and just all your contributions. So thank you for all your work that you're doing.
And thank you for having me on your show, Lori. I appreciate it. And I love what you're doing as well. So hopefully we'll get
Thank
to
you.
work together.
Absolutely. Take care, everyone.
Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that video. Before you go though, please hit the subscribe button and the alert button so you will be notified whenever we upload any new videos. On Monday, we upload the Healthy Human Revolution podcast. Now, if you'd rather listen to the podcast, you can find it on all the major platforms, such as iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and even Spotify. On Tuesdays, we upload the Doctor's In. This is where I answer your questions. Thinking of that, could you please comment below any questions you might have about health or wellness or any topics that you would like me to cover? Now, if you're looking for more resources on how to start a plant-based diet, sustain a plant-based diet, exercise, recipes, anything regarding wellness, we've got you covered. Check out healthyhumanrevolution.com. And again, thanks for watching.